Welcome to LollieTasking with ADHD. I am your host, Dr. LollieTasking, a multi-passionate mom of three, a physician, and an ADHD life coach because, like most of you amazing women listening, I have ADHD. Join me as we chat about how ADHD affects our lives and learn strategies to help us all thrive, not just survive, with ADHD so we can live the life we want while accomplishing all our goals. Let's get started. Welcome to LollieTasking with ADHD. Again, I am your host, Dr. LollieTasking, a physician and ADHD trained life coach for easily distracted women who are tired of being busy and ready to become more productive so they can accomplish all their goals with ease. So, before we get started today, I wanted to give a shout out to Kelly. Kelly left us a review. Actually, she sent me a message. She said, "Love, love, love this. I can't wait to keep listening to more episodes. Keep it up." So, if you love this podcast and encouraged by what you hear, please leave us a review, like, share with friends so more people can hear about this and talk about this. And maybe, just maybe, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. So yesterday I had a rather unproductive day. Yes, I am an ADHD trained life coach, and yes, I do have some unproductive days. But our goal is to be more 90% productive, right? You can always have all productive days. Anyway, I digress. Hashtag ADHD. I had a rather unproductive day, and right before it was time to go to bed, bedtime for me is about 9 p.m., 9:30 in some instances. I had the sudden burst of energy and all the things I wanted to do, had to do, was supposed to do, had to be done like right now, right then, right? Not today, not the next day. I just had to do it now. So I hear there's a lot of people call it revenge bedtime procrastination. And for mothers, it's when, like, say you've done everything for everyone all day and all of a sudden it's time for bed and you're like, I just need my me time, right? I just need that time for me. But for women with ADHD, it's almost like a time where we hyper focus and try to get things done. And we're almost amazed about how much we get done in minimum amount of time when we do that. However, the problem with that is it actually cuts into your sleep. And when you cut into your sleep, it actually makes your ADHD symptoms worse, okay? And another thing about that is that it's actually not uncommon in ADHD for us to have sleep problems, even besides the fact that you have just deprived yourself from quality sleep. Like it's known, like there's associated sleep disorder with ADHD. And it's actually estimated that about 25 to 50% of people with ADHD experience sleep problems, ranging from difficulty going to bed and insomnia on ourselves, okay? But the question to me always is that, okay, which one is first? Is it the chicken or the egg, or is it both, right? Did ADHD cause sleep problems, or did sleep problems make your ADHD symptoms worse? Many ADHD symptoms, I would say, are similar to what you would think of when you're sleep deprived. When you're sleep deprived, you get lack of focus, um you you miss things, basically the executive function, right? You forget stuff, difficulty concentrating. um and one thing I've actually told some of my clients is that if you're having a hard time managing your ADHD with medication, or you've tried everything and nothing is working, take a log about your sleep hygiene and see if sleep is contributing to this. Are you chronically sleep deprived? And it may be a good idea to maybe talk to a sleep coach, or maybe talk to um, a sleep medicine doctor, actually, who can maybe do a sleep study or help you evaluate if you have underlying sleep problems. Okay. So, um, with ADHD, though, we know that we can have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking up when we need to, right? Um, And what I read is that in predominantly inattentive symptoms, we're more likely to have a later bedtime. And that's where the revenge procrastination comes in, right? Like all of a sudden you get this burst of energy. Oh, I was supposed to do A to Z, but now it's 10 p.m. and I feel like I need to at least get A through F done, because if I don't do that, I feel like my day was wasted. Instead of you to just go to bed and wake up early and kind of start all over again. And then in hyperactive impulsive symptoms type, they suffer more from insomnia. And I call it because they have like increased mental hyperfocus, or like increased mental distractibility. They keep thinking of stuff. Um, and you could see that sometimes with anxieties too, right? When you're up just worrying, you're unable to fall asleep. And in the combined inattentive type, you could have both. You could have periods where you go to bed late, and then you can have periods where you have insomnia because you can't just stop thinking about all the things you have to do. So, what causes this? So, number one cause is circadian rhythm. Okay. So, if you don't know what circadian rhythm is basically like your internal biological clock that tells your body, okay, it's nighttime, you need to go to bed. It's morning time, you need to wake up. It's kind of like that crow in the morning cuckoo that happens. um what happens is that there is a hormone in our body called melatonin. Melatonin is usually referred to as a sleep hormone because it is noted to help your body regulate your sleep wake cycle. It's basically made in a pineal gland in the brain, and it's produced when it starts to sense like the evening is dark, right? um and when your body says that it's getting dark, it produces this medicine called melatonin, or the not medicine, this hormone called melatonin. And the melatonin essentially helps you start to have drowsiness so you can start to fall asleep. It has actually been stated that people with ADHD actually have decreased melatonin in their body. They have decreased amounts, not actually, not decrease melatonin, but decrease in the time. And when I mean decrease in the time, it's like, so let's say most people's melatonin pick at like 7. We ADHD, we pick at like 10 or something, right? So we have late onset is the word, late onset of melatonin production. So because of that, we have late bedtime. So if we have late bedtime, that means that if you have to wake up early, you're not having the adequate amount of sleep that you need to wake up early. Okay. And then another cause is that the mental hyperarousal I spoke about earlier. You are so wired up. You have so many things to do. You have so many things to write down that you can't just sleep. You can't turn it off. So you have insomnia. For those who have hyperactive and inattentive type, a lot of them actually also may have both, right? They may have, you know, delayed sleep time, and then they may also have insomnia. Unfortunately, there are also some times where we have coexisting conditions like anxiety and depression. But anxiety and or depression also would cause some of the symptoms that we get from sleep deprivation or from ADHD. So you can imagine if you're already feeling this way, right? And then you have anxiety and depression, it's going to make your symptom worse. The easiest, most common culprit, I always say, and it's the easiest, the simplest, the likely to work, right? Maybe not likely to work, maybe harder to work, but but the easiest thing is actually like poor sleep hygiene. A lot of people have poor sleep hygiene, and if they just focus on that, they may help a lot of their sleep issues or ADHD problem. So with poor sleep hygiene, I think it's so important. And because of that, even in our program, we talk about sleep first. Because I believe that if you do not know how to take care of your mind, body, soul, rejuvenate, it's really going to be hard to focus on the parts of your ADHD that you may need even more work on, okay? Because you need that mental clarity. But if you're too tired or too sleepy, it's difficult to have that mental clarity. So, as you can imagine, if you have poor circadian rhythm or decreased melatonin or late onset melatonin, you have increased mental arousal at night, you have coexisting condition, or you have poor hygiene. Some have one of those four, some have all of them. But if you have all that, you can imagine why you have daytime sleepiness. You could imagine why you have difficulty waking up. You can imagine why you have focus concerns. You can also imagine why, you have daytime fatigue and then you fall asleep in inappropriate time, and some people deem you as narcoleptic. And there are some people actually. Another thing we haven't actually talked about is that there are some people who actually they go to bed on time, but then they're like restless at nights, right? And they don't have like refreshing sleep, and they keep having multiple nighttime wake ups. You see, those also will have symptoms, and those actually present more like with irritability, a restlessness during the day as well, and just tired. And when you're tired, it's difficult to actually focus and do what you need to do. Okay. But I'll be remiss if I didn't talk about sleep disorders that may be misdiagnosed as ADHD. While ADHD could be the cause of your issues, and you may have ADHD, unfortunately, there's sometimes when all you really do have is a sleep disorder and you're being misdiagnosed as ADHD. What makes it even harder is you can have ADHD and you can have a sleep disorder. So you can have a combination of both. That is why it is very important to go to a physician who is well versed in sleep issues. So I saw this amazing summary by Daniel Pacheco of Sleep Foundation, and it talked about the different uh, types of sleep disorders and how to find them or how to know about them, and now to see, okay, could this be my ADHD or not? So she talks about four in particular. Number one is sleep disordered breathing. Okay, with sleep disordered breathing, it includes snoring or having sleep apnea. With children, it may just be like they have enlarged tonsils or adenoids. And in a lot of cases, we just go ahead and take them out, right? We have a tonsillectomy, adenoidectomy. A lot of times in adult, it may still be your tonsils and adenoids. And I still have huge tonsils actually. So you may want to talk to a ENT doctor, that's an ear, nose, and throat doctor that can reevaluate it and see if that's what's going on with you. And in some cases, it may just be like you have sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea. It may be because you're overweight or other issues. Some people have different reasons for having obstructive sleep apnea. And in that case, you may need what we call a CPAP. A CPAP machine is a machine an adult wears at night to sleep. And with that machine, it allows you to open up your airway so you have better breathing. And when you have better breathing at night, then you have better sleep. So it's very important to discuss with your physician if you think you have significant snoring, right? Or you just feel I go to bed at the right time and I wake up at the right time and I still feel tired. So those are some of the clues to help you say, oh, maybe I'm not getting adequate rest for sleep. Um, Number two, did I say four? I think there are three. Number two is restless leg syndrome. So with restless leg syndrome, people with restless leg syndrome usually have some kind of tingling sensation or the need to move their feet a lot, especially when they're about to fall asleep. And it's actually estimated that about 50% of people with ADHD have this restless leg syndrome. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of these people, they stay in what we call stage one sleep. And when they're in stage one sleep, it's really hard to have like good full sleep. They don't go into that deep sleep that you need for your whole body to really have true rest, right? And it's been tied to iron and dopamine deficiency. So, I mean, if you know about ADHD, a lot of the issues with ADHD is dopamine deficiency. So, could it be both, right? Could you be like it's because of your dopamine deficiency that you also have restless leg syndrome? I don't think restless leg syndrome makes you have ADHD, but I do think that your ADHD is highly associated with restless leg syndrome. The next and final thing I was going to talk about is narcolepsy. So, narcolepsy is when a person tends to just fall asleep suddenly during the day, or they may have difficulty sleeping soundly at night. They could just be anywhere and just drop and sleep. Okay. And research has shown that adults with narcolepsy are twice as likely to have had ADHD as a child, which also goes with the real important connection between sleep and ADHD. Okay. So I hope you got a little bit out of this. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this more for information and more for you to understand why it is so important you sleep. Not because, oh, you're an adult and you don't need a bedtime, but everybody needs a bedtime, to be honest, right? But because it is closely related to ADHD, and it may actually sorry about that. It may actually help you to do better and focus better with your ADHD. So now that I've told you about all the connections between ADHD and sleep, you're probably thinking, okay, now what do I do about it? So one of the number one thing you can do is you need to realize that just like as a child, you needed a bedtime, as an adult, you also need a bedtime. Set a bedtime and stick to it. Like your bedtime should be like an appointment that you never want to break. Because if you have it in mind that, okay, I'm going to sleep at 9 o'clock, and start prepping way before day to sleep, your body will eventually get used to sleeping at 9 o'clock and waking up at a certain time. Okay. Set a bedtime, stick to it. Start a nighttime routine, just like with your kids. You have a nighttime routine with them. Start one for yourself as well that will work for you and work for your schedule. And you have to realize that routines don't naturally come well for people with ADHD, but we need routine to be able to succeed. So it's very important that you do that. Try to avoid screen time. I always say 1 to 2 hours before bed because of that circadian rhythm. The screen time has a lot of lights, or screen, excuse me, has light that may affect your circadian rhythm. So if your body feels like it's still bright outside, then your body doesn't automatically have that ability to just like tune down and starts going down. Okay. Avoid highly stimulated activities. If you have like that, what I call that mental hyperfocus or mental overdrive, I recommend you doing a brain dump. A brain dump is when you take a journal or a notebook and just write out everything in your brain, and that seems to help a lot. Um, so those are some few things you could start working on to help you. If you do need additional help, this is a super short episode because, sleep is sleep, right? Make me want to sleep listening to this episode. If you do need additional help with your ADHD and sleep, you can join us in our Lolla Club, which is LollieTasking Lounge, which is our membership club where we talk about all things ADHD. And it's a group coaching program that helps people try to achieve their goals, accomplish their goals. But we talk about all things ADHD. It really encompasses your entire life. And the first module actually works on you, works on helping you with your mind, helping you with your body, helping you with your soul, helping you with focusing on you. Because the one thing about ADHD is it's really about you learning how to gain awareness in what this diagnosis is about, right? And once you get awareness, it's so much easier to what I call own up your superpower, use those important parts, and ditch the negative aspect, like get away from the kryptonite. But if you don't really know the importance of it or the connection of it, then you really don't know. A lot of people, when I talk to them, they say, ADHD just affects my sleep. I can't sleep because of my ADHD. And I tell them, yes, I agree, because if you're ADHD, it could affect your sleep. But do you realize that without sleep, your ADHD cannot be at its optimum best? Like it cannot be managed at its optimum best, right? Like you could take all the stimulants in the world, you could go to all the coaches in the world. If you don't have that baseline habits to help you, it's really, really hard to have a successful journey in managing your ADHD. This is why I started with sleep. I'll probably talk about exercise. I'll talk about food that we eat that may affect our ADHD. I'll talk about how anxiety affects our ADHD. I'll talk about how depression affects our ADHD. So essentially, I'm trying to help you with being aware of all the issues surrounding your ADHD to be able to help you just get to that goal. Because after all, you're a smart woman, you're a professional woman, you know what you're supposed to be doing. A lot of times it's really just knowing, okay, is this the right thing for me? Okay. So you can listen to the podcast. I'm going to bring so much more episodes out, like I said. But if you need a more deep dive and you want to join other like minded people, you can join us at the LollieTasking Lounge. Okay. So, with that being said, I want to talk about my favorite quote for this week. And it's by no other than Queen Bee. You guys know who Queen Bee is, okay? She says, having peace, happiness, and healthiness is my definition of beauty. And you can't have any of that without sleep. So I totally agree with Beyonce. My definition of healthiness, and this is what we talk about in the Lola Club. Lola, which is wealth in my native language of Yoruba, it means have wealth. Lola, have wealth, means having peace, happiness, healthiness, joyfulness. Those are the definition of true beauty, and those are the definition of true wealth. And you cannot have that without sleep. So, before we round out today, I want you to think about it. What is that one thing you got from this episode? And what is that one thing you're going to implement? I want you to take out your phone. If you're driving, don't do that. But if you're not, take out your journal, write it down, say to yourself, tonight I'm going to have a bedtime. Tonight I'm going to not do screen time before bed. Tonight I'm going to start not fill in the blank. But you have to be able to actively think about the one thing you're going to take out of this episode so you can implement it and start to take your life to the next level, okay? And that's it for today of LollieTasking with ADHD. As you know, we talked about. So in this episode, we talked about sleep. And how sleeps affect us, and how sleep can make us go to bed late, how sleep can cause insomnia, the importance of, knowing your circadian rhythm and making sure you sleep when you're supposed to sleep, avoiding light, and at the end of it all, you knowing what works for you and picking one thing. If you could do one thing, what is it? Okay? So that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I hope you have an amazing and intentional week ahead. Don't be a stranger. If you have any questions or want to talk more extensively about our episode today, please join our Facebook to continue the conversation. Again, don't forget to follow us on our IG at LollieTasker or email us at hello@LollieTasking.com. And of course, leave a review, okay? So till next time, remember, you can do it too. It's some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. Bye-bye. Thanks for hanging out with us on another episode of LollieTasking with ADHD. If you like what you've heard today, I would love for you to click the subscribe button, rate, and leave a great review, in addition to sharing with your friends. Your review allows visibility and also allows other amazing women to find this podcast. Also, if you have any questions or topics you would like for us to discuss, please contact me via direct message on Instagram at LollieTasker or email us at hello@LollieTasking.com. Till next time, this is LollieTasking with ADHD.